Hello, friends. So we are here to do a wrap-up/reset. So I'm calling it a reset, but we're also going to quickly wrap up some things from the month of January. So when it comes to my manga reading, I have some things to talk to you about that I haven't talked about anywhere else. I'm going to quickly insert a clip here of when I talked about the other volume ones that I read that weren't in the vlog. So I have 24 in the vlog, and then I have another 11 in a video that's exclusive to members, but I'm going to briefly mention those and show you an image of the final results of this reading project at the end of that. Oh, hey, so quick wrap up of my manga reading for the month of January. I read 11 more volume ones. I'm going to quickly show you the 9 physicals, and then I've got 2 digitals of the rest of the volume ones. I have talked about them in depth in a video to my members, so if you're interested in that, you can consider joining my channel membership. So first things first, I believe it's Fall in Love You Angels is the title. It's this one right here. And then I've got I Want to Love You Until Your Dying Day, Under the Oak Tree, the comic, Volume 1, Guilty Smile, Volume 1, Colette Decides to Die, Volume 1, but technically Volumes 1 and 2 because it's an omnibus. The Small Animal, well, it's upside down. The Small Animal-Like Lady is Adored by the Ice Prince, My Boyfriend is a Dog, Sheep Princess in Wolf's Clothing, Volume 1, Let's Do It Already, Volume 1, Otaku Vampires Love Bite, Volume 1, My Kitten is a Picky Eater, Volume 1. So that's the rest of the volume ones. The next clip will be the rest of what I've read, and we'll do stats and all that good stuff. So sorry you're getting this so piecemeal, but I wanted to film it while I was set up for it. Now that we've quickly talked about that, let's talk about the reading stats of my manga for the month. So first up, let's do the Read What You Own stats. So I started the month at 251 on my TBR. I read a total of 45 volumes this month. I did buy 10 volumes. That does include one that didn't add to my TBR. I bought the special edition of the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, I should say, of the first volume of the Apothecary Diaries. So that was one of my purchases, but that didn't add to my TBR, obviously. So we started at 251, and I've gotten my physical down to 215 now, which feels really good. I did read a couple of digital volumes this month, and that accounted in that number. And then there was one that I had forgotten to move to my red as well. So that's kind of the number discrepancies there. So really excited to be down that much in the first month of the year, because my goal is to read those 250 volumes by the end of the year. So let's talk about some demographics and things real quick. Okay, so as I said, I read a total of 45 volumes. The page count for that, which I haven't really tracked before, but I am this year, is 9,431 pages of manga, which feels really cool to say that I read that much in a month. But yeah, my average rating per volume was 4.06. I did DNF 2 volumes. I talked about that in the vlog already. That's linked in the corner if you haven't watched it yet, by the way. So demographics specifically, so I read 6 shonen titles, 16 shoujo titles, 7 seinen titles, 7 josei titles, 4 yuri titles, and 5 yaoi titles. Now, this is how they are classified demographically on mangaupdates.com. That's where I always get this information. So, yes, I know we don't really use the terms yuri and yaoi that much anymore. Some people find it derogatory, but that is how they are classified, which is why I am continuing to classify them that way. So I'm sorry if that is something that bothers you, but it's the easiest way I have to track that data. So that's how I will continue to do it. So there are some not volume ones that I read. So I'm going to quickly go through those with you. So I did read volume 5 and volume 6 of The Titan's Bride. This is a story that I really love and enjoy. This fantasy romance really just is developing in a way that I didn't expect it to. In a lot of ways, it's better than it has any right to be. Yes, this is a very explicit manga. It is quote unquote sealed for our pleasure. So it's one of those things where if you don't like smut, obviously this series isn't going to be for you. but I really love the relationship between these two guys. They really have a beautiful relationship that's built, and it starts as a, political marriage almost kind of thing, but it ends up being this really beautiful thing between the two of them, and I really love how it's developing. It's still ongoing. There's only 7 volumes out currently in Japan, but only 6 in the US. So I am current. Volume 6 came out in January. So that's one of the volumes that I picked up. Another volume that I picked up because I couldn't help myself, and that is volume 5 of The Other World's Books Depend on the Bean Counter. I love, again, this fantasy romance male series. It's just a thing for me. It scratches an itch I love. This one, our couple spent most of the volume apart, but I think that was good for story development reasons. So I'm not mad at it. But if you were just wanting them to be together the entire time and adorable, you didn't get that in this volume so much. But I really like what it did for our main character and the development of his character within the world. So I really like where this one's headed. Again, I will talk about Bean Counter forever. So if that bothers you and you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I highly recommend it either way. Next, I have volume 2 of Hate Me But Let Me Stay. I did read volume 1 of this in my volume 1 vlog that I did earlier in the month, and I really like the way this story is developing. I believe volume 3 is out or out soon. So again, this is one that I will continue to pick up and enjoy, and I just really like the direction this story's headed. Like, they're both growing and maturing. There's been a bit of a time skip, and I'm really liking what that means for our characters. So again, it's really good right now. I'm really happy and enjoying it, and would highly recommend picking up the series if you haven't. But again, this is Omegaverse, so that's not going to be for everybody. So I like to caveat it that if you like Omegaverse, go ahead and go for this one. Next, another one that I picked up this month. It was actually a gift from a coworker, and that is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun Volume 21. She knows I love this series, so thank you to my coworker who picked this up for me. And I really I love this series. I'm going to stay current best I can with it because I just really enjoy each volume as I pick it up. I have zero regrets with this series. This is one that I came to because of participating in a readathon, and other people were reading it, and it was like a prompt helper. And so I started it, and I'm like, okay, this is better than it has any right to be. And I've talked about this pretty extensively on the channel, so you can definitely go find more information on that elsewhere. I'm not going to talk too much about it here just because of time, but yes, highly recommend the series. Then I've got the next volume, and I swear I won't bother you again. These are very slow releasing volumes because we're current with Japan, but I do really enjoy this fantasy series. This is kind of the villainous do-over trope, and I really like how this one plays out. I really enjoyed this 5th installment, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Next, I have volume 8 of The Dragon Knight's Beloved. Now, this one is officially finished in Japan. It's 10 volumes, so we're only going to have 2 more. Again, I really like the way the story's developing, and I'm really excited to see where the last 2 volumes take us. I'm just really, really happy with how all of this has come together. It's fantastic. I really love it. All right, another one that is a sequel from the volume 1 vlog that I just couldn't help myself, and that is the Hachioji Tengu's Love. The Hachioji specialty Tengu's Love. I really loved this 2nd installment. Our Tengu is now living with our hero and experiencing the greater world. He's doing this as a quote-unquote favor to her, but the way they're developing and becoming more friends, potentially into lovers, is working really well for me. So I would highly recommend the series. And then I have A Suitable Fetish Volume 2. I really loved the first one. I equally loved the second one. I'm itching to get my hands on Volume 3 whenever it comes out. Granted, Volume 2 just came out, so it's going to be a minute, but yes, highly recommend this series. It's so, so good. If you like a good adult, sexy office worker kind of romance, this is definitely going to scratch that itch for you manga-wise, and it's very, very good. And then last but not least is another one that's a sequel from things that I've read. I talked about this first volume more in my members exclusive video, but Sheep Princess in Wolf's Clothing. I'm obsessed with this series. I've heard people say this series is non-con, but it's definitely not. If you're saying it's non-con, I don't think you understand what non-con really is. So I will say that I really love this, and I really like the way their relationship is developing. Yes, the bodyguard is trying to put on the brakes because of propriety, because she's a princess, and then she's just her bodyguard. But I love a princess and bodyguard romance, and I like that the princess is just as into it. They're equally into each other, and this volume really proves that. So if for some reason volume 1 bothered you, I highly recommend trying volume 2. If it doesn't work for you after that, go ahead and pass on it. But I really think this series deserves a lot more love than it's getting. All right, friends, that's it for the manga. Let's shift over to book stats. Alrighty, so the total amount of books read for the month of January is 11. 2 of those were rereads, and that's Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, which are rereads of the Stormlight Archive, so that I'm fresh on everything before I read Wind and Truth, which I could get to Wind and Truth in February. We'll see how the month goes. So when it comes to the format in which I read them, 7 of these reads were digital, only 2 were physical, and 3 were audio. My 2 rereads were audios. Arcs were 7, so those are my 7 digitals. My average rating was 4.05, so it was a pretty good reading month overall. In the 25 in 2025 challenge that I'm doing as part of being part of Izzy's membership, I did read my 2 books. The books that I read for that were Sea Glass Summer and A Daughter of Fair Verona. We're going to talk more about that, but I want you to try to see if you can guess the prompts, because I'm not going to tell you. And then when it comes to my 40 before I turn 40, I have read 14 of those books. I'm going to do a more extensive video about that and my plans to get it finished before August in probably the next video. I'm not sure. You'll get it sometime in February. And then my total pages read for books is 5,356. Granted, a good chunk of those were my rereads of the Stormlight Archive books, because that alone was like 2,200 pages. But either way, I feel really good about what I got read. So again, 4 of these books I talked about in a separate video. I will leave that linked in the corner. And then let's talk about the 2 from the 25 in 2025. The first one is A Daughter of Fair Verona. This one I ended up DNFing, sadly. This one didn't quite work for me. Coming off something as good as Once Smitten, Twice Shy in a Shakespeare retelling, this Shakespeare reimagining really didn't work for me. It was rubbing me the wrong way. Our character was supposed to be, you know, an older, into her 20s woman, and she was talking like she was a 13-year-old girl. I couldn't deal, so it didn't end up working for me. I'm sorry if this is one that you loved and you hoped I would love as well, but sadly it did not work. The other one that I read for the 25 in 2025 is Sea Glass Summer by Miranda Liaison. This is one that I've had on my NetGalley for a very long time, and so I really wanted to get it read, so being able to use it for a prompt was really good for me. This one is a military widow and the military man, like the dead husband's military buddy romance. And I'm learning that these don't quite work for me anymore. I used to really like that kind of dynamic, but I'm learning more and more when I read them that they just don't quite work for me. So I won't be picking up any more with that particular trope for the foreseeable future. And the book isn't bad per se. It's just not a set of tropes I really love. And so I gave this 3 stars. And I really love this author. So it's just the fact that the tropes didn't work. The fact that the writing was good enough for me to finish it should tell you enough. But yeah, if you like that trope, then go for it. The other one I read that is not a physical, it was one of my audios, and that is Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. This was also an arc I had, but I listened to the audiobook of it, and it was really, really cute. I ended up giving this 5 stars. I really thoroughly enjoyed Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. This is the perfect amount of cozy fantasy for me. The stakes that were there felt high enough that it worked, but it also wasn't overwhelming. Like, it was still fun and cute. There are baby griffins involved. It's just adorable. So I highly recommend checking out the series if you haven't. I'm actually currently reading the second book. I read that as a buddy read with Lindsay over at Lindsay Tutt. We're also buddy reading book 2. So do know that going in. And then let's talk about the 2 physicals that came off my TBR. And then we'll talk about my 2 favorite reads of the month. So first up here, we have The Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy. This was part of my 40 to read before I turn 40 project. This was a recommendation from Ian over at Ian Gubeli. If you like historical fiction or grittier, darker fantasy, I highly recommend his channel. I'll leave him linked in the corner. So make sure you go check out Ian. And if you decide to subscribe, tell him that I sent you over there. In The Prince of Tides, we are dealing with a man whose life is kind of falling apart, and how he has to go and basically put his twin sister, who's having like a mental breakdown, back together. As he's there, he ends up having an affair with her therapist. And it's messy, it's gritty, and you definitely get a look at the way they were raised and how he ended up the way he was and how the sister ended up the way she is from the way they were raised. And in a lot of ways, this book is kind of a product of its time. It definitely uses some terminology and stuff that we don't use now. And you can definitely tell this was written by an older white man in the late 70s. Like, it definitely reads that way. So if you're expecting this to be a perfectly up-to-date kind of thing, that's not what you're going to get in this. I can appreciate the beauty of two people coming together and healing and kind of, in a way, like figuring life out together. The one thing that this book did that I didn't love was it kind of glamorized having an affair. Like, having an affair is what solves all your problems, which I did not love. So in this way, I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. In a lot of ways, this book really worked, and in other ways it didn't. I do think it's kind of a product of its time, so do know that going in. If you're sensitive to some terminology and whatnot, just know that a bunch of that, and our main character is a white man from the South in the 70s. So a lot of the terminology that he uses is not what we would use now. We'll put it that way. Either way, I really appreciated and enjoyed my time with this book, and I am grateful to Ian for him recommending it to me. Another book that I read for my 40 Before I Turned 40 project that did work well for me and is a 6-star and a favorite. So this is book 1 of the favorites of the the month. And that is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I've had this on my TBR for a really long time. So when I asked Maeve what she would pick out for me, this is what she picked. And I'm so glad she did. This book is absolutely stunning. It's a shorty, but I really loved the prose within this one. And this is an epistolary novel. So essentially, this is all about letters between these two secret agents where they're slowly falling in love as they get to know one another. And they look at the world from the other's perspective. And it's beautiful. It's stunning. I don't want to say too much more because this book is so incredibly short. But this book and certain things within this book are now living rent-free in my head. And I love it. Again, the tabs aren't as nearly as much as I marked. I only tabbed like the very, very like prominent things to me. So again, like they used little pet names and called, like, the agents' names are red and blue. And so they start finding things in the world and they call them those beautiful things in their color wheel. And it's so cute. I love it. I highly recommend this book. I'm really excited for Amal El-Mohtar's next book, which is going to be on my TBR for February because I got approved for the art. Yay. So anyways, highly excited about that. And then we have Once Smitten, Twice Shy. This is the other 6-star read of the month. I talked about this very extensively in the other video, so I won't say too much here other than this book is amazing. And I loved everything that happened in this book. Like, I really love Juliet and Will. Their dynamic is amazing. This is a 12th Night retelling. So yes. All the things, yes. And I just had to shout this out one more time because yes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about February and February plans. I am planning on doing a project that'll get through a bunch of things on my TBR, like on my physical TBR, because I didn't read too much from my physical TBR, and that's something that's overwhelming me right now. So do know that. I'm not going to say too much about what that is. We'll just say try a chapter of a certain type of book. We'll just put it that way. And manga-wise, my focus is going to be catching up on series. So I have multiple series on my physical TBR where I have multiple volumes to kind of catch up on what I've bought. So anything that I have 2 or more volumes of, I'm going to try to focus on in the month of February, because I feel like that's going to be a really good balance and to all the volume 1s that I read in January. And again, I'm not going to be picking up a ton of things. So yeah, I'm probably going to like quarterly do hauls again, since I'm not buying a lot. And so yeah, those are roughly my plans. I've shown you some of my journal stuff. And yeah, so that is my reset / wrap up. So we're hitting February strong. Sorry this video is getting to you later than I wanted, but I still wanted to make sure that it was the quality that I wanted. So with that said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you are here just because you love me, leave the pencil emoji, because we're going to get some stuff done in February. And if you like me holding the mic, also let me know. This is a new thing. I'm not sure if I like it, but it's kind of fun to do for a change. So I might do this for certain types of videos, but not for all of them. So let me know what you think of that, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.